Wishart.
Thank you ever so much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I rise to support the many farmers in my constituency and the rural communities that farmers are the very heart of. I want to try and do just something a little bit different in this debate. I want to try and figure out what's behind some of these moves that the Labour Party have put in place when it comes to farming stuff. Oh, what about Brexit? He's asking. Nope, believe me, I am coming to that. But I want to try and understand just a little bit about the motives of this particular government. And what I think it basically comes down to is these very clumsy attempts to try and define what working people are. Now, it's quite clear that farmers don't fit that bill. Even though farmers work 12-hour days and back-breaking conditions, outdoors mainly, right into older age, they just don't seem to fit into that particular club. And Labour have always had this urban-centric view of our country, and everything they do in politics is mainly viewed through a metropolitan lens. So farmers have never really had a chance with this Labour government. And I think it shouldn't really come as a surprise. I don't know why they shouted the honourable member down, that somebody as thoroughly unpleasant as John McTernan, Tony Blair's former aide, would say something like what these farmers should receive, the same as what Margaret Thatcher dished out to the miners. And his view that we could do without a farming industry is something that's got just a little bit of currency, I think, within the Labour Party. And as well, to be honest about some of these things. The thing is, for my comrades over there, is farmers are simply not one of us. And I remember the last time we had a whole cohort of Labour members on the government benches, and we used to mercilessly tease them, Madam Deputy Speaker, that there was nae therms in Scottish Labour. Now, there was two things about that quite unjustly slight. One is they didn't actually respond to it. They didn't seem to sort of care. It was whatevs. And secondly, it was patently untrue. There were lots of farms in Scottish Labour. And again, with another cohort down here, there's a great number of Scottish Labour MPs that represent rural and farming constituencies. But the point remains the same. They just do not care about what happens in farmers. And I think the general view is they don't rely on a rural farming vote. And their view is they could just about muddle through their elections without the support of the rural community. And the thing is, they see farming businesses as just another business that they might find in one of their town centres or city centres. They understand nothing about how it's possible to be asset-rich and resource-poor, about land values and the intimate nature of family farms dependent upon the fixed assets to generate business and activity. The simple fact is this government does not understand the rural community or how the generational continuity of farms actually work. And the thing is, there's now loads of new Labour MPs representing our rural constituencies in England. Rural Labour members of Parliament don't tend to last all that long. They're maybe in for one, possibly at most 2 terms. And that's generally because they're forced to accept and subsume the agenda that's put forward by their government. So my little bit of advice to them is start to think about the farmers in their communities, start to think about their own electoral arithmetic and try and actually be on the side of farmers for a change. Of course, I'll give way.
I've heard the honourable gentleman, thank you for giving way. I can't believe what I'm hearing. I'm a four-time Member of Parliament for a semi-rural seat since 1997. You're just talking nonsense. I've never heard anything like it.
I think I'm a little bit familiar with the electoral history of the honourable gentleman, but he was out of Parliament for quite a long time, if I say to him. It's good to see him back in his place, obviously, but he was booted out, and I think that was basically due down to his lack of interest or concern or care about what was happening into the rural community. But if I was NFU England, I would be making sure that that was definitely going to be put in front of the members of Parliament who represent rural constituencies in England. But I've got a couple of bits of advice for some of the UK farmers and the representatives. First of all, Jeremy Clarkson is not your friend. He represents a part of the rural community that's so far away from the real struggle that farmers face that he was well being brought up in an urban Labour constituency. And the second thing about the farmers is be very careful of what the Conservative Party are offering. Remember, it was the Conservative Party who oversaw the cost of living crisis, who oversaw the ending of something like thousands of farms, and it was them, and I'll come to the Honourable Gentleman's point, that brought in this absurd and economically illiterate Brexit. This Tory-hard Brexit has increased farming costs, introduced unnecessary barriers to markets, it has allowed lower quality competitors in the marketplace, and it has taken billions of pounds out of the rural economy. How the Tories were able to sell this chaotic Brexit pup to so many rural communities will go down as one of the worst pieces of mis-selling in British farming. There is a different way to do it. In Scotland, we do things differently. We make sure that there's going to be a constant farm payment to farmers in Scotland. And what we've also done is have food production at the very heart of our farming policy. And today in Scottish Budget, as well as introducing a winter fuel payment, we are going to abolish the two-child cap benefit. And on top of that, £660 million will be going to farmers, and all the money that was kept for government emergencies in the last few budgets is going to be returned in full. Madam Deputy Speaker, that is how you support farmers with your government, and it would be good to see this Labour government doing a little bit of that in the future.